welcome to the Deep Dive. We know you're looking for clear, well-structured takes on complex subjects, and today we're tackling one that just keeps coming up. The idea, the hypothesis really, that governments have been hiding evidence that HAARP is used for weather control.
Right, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program.
Exactly. So our mission here is to really look objectively at the claims, the reasoning, what evidence is presented, based on the sources we've gathered.
And just to state up front, HAARP's official purpose is, well, studying the ionosphere.
Right. That's the public line.
Yes. And we've gathered quite a bit, scientific papers, official statements from places like NOAA, reports on how these theories spread. The goal is really to lay it all out.
What's claimed, what's offered as proof, and then what the science and documented facts say in response.
Precisely. A full picture.
Okay, let's get specific then. Beyond just weather control, what exactly is HAARP accused of doing? What kind of events?
Well, the accusations are pretty dramatic. Our sources point to claims that HAARP can trigger things like floods, hurricanes, droughts, even earthquakes.
Earthquakes, wow.
Yes, and thunderstorms, power outages too. One source brings up Michelle Chossudovsky, who apparently stated there's scientific evidence HAARP is fully operational and can cause these things.
That's a bold statement. Are there other types of claims, maybe going beyond weather?
Oh, absolutely. Nick Bigich Jr., who co-wrote a book on HAARP, he's claimed it could start earthquakes, like I said, but also potentially weaponize the upper atmosphere, turn it into some kind of destructive lens.
The lens, okay.
And his website apparently goes even further, suggesting HAARP is actually a mind control device.
Mind control.
Yeah.
That's quite a leap from ionospheric research.
It is. It definitely broadens the scope of the conspiracy theories.
How do these ideas gain traction, though? Especially the more extreme ones.
Well, sometimes it leads to real-world consequences. Our materials mention a case in Georgia, 2 men planning an actual attack on the HAARP facility.
Seriously.
According to the reports, they believed HAARP was doing all of it, manipulating weather, controlling minds, even trapping souls.
Trapping souls. Okay, that shows how deeply held these beliefs can become.
And potentially dangerous.
So let's talk about how these ideas spread. You mentioned they keep popping up. We see a lot of stuff online, especially after big disasters.
That's a really key point. Our sources show a pattern where these HAARP weather control claims really surge, during and after major weather events.
Like specific ones.
Yeah. Hurricanes Irma and Harvey back in 2017 are prime examples. After those storms hit, there was a definite spike in online chatter blaming HAARP.
And it seems like sometimes legitimate scientific discussion gets twisted in the process.
Very much so. One source we looked at breaks down this whole thing with a 2013 CBS video. It featured physicist Mikio Kaku.
I think I know the one you mean.
Right. He was talking about the future possibility of maybe causing rain with lasers, and he called past weather modification evidence inconclusive. But that wasn't how it was presented later.
What happened?
Well, conspiracy blogs, YouTube channels, they took clips from that interview completely out of context. They made it seem like Kaku was confessing that HAARP caused Harvey and Irma specifically.
But he wasn't talking about HAARP or those specific hurricanes at all.
No. They even changed titles on the clips,
Right.
Totally misrepresented the original CBS piece. And importantly, Kaku himself responded directly to this later.
What did he say?
He told Snopes, the fact-checking site, that the story connecting him to that claim was 100% false, unequivocal.
Okay.
Plus, he was actually on CBS again in August 2017 talking about Harvey and hurricane science, with zero mention of HAARP being involved.
That's important context to have the direct denial. So, okay, we have these claims circulating, often based on misinformation. What do the official bodies, the scientific organizations, say?
Well, we have a very clear fact check from NOAA, that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Right.
They state point blank that there's no technology currently available that can create, destroy, modify, strengthen, or steer hurricanes. Full stop.
No ambiguity there.
None. They emphasize hurricanes are natural, driven by really complex ocean and atmosphere interactions.
What about things like cloud seeding? Does NOAA do anything like that? There's often confusion around weather modification in general.
They address that too. NOAA explicitly states they are not involved in weather modification, including cloud seeding.
Yeah, okay.
There's one tiny exception. They are legally required to track weather modification activities done by others in the U.S., but they don't fund it, they don't oversee it, they don't participate beyond that tracking.
So they just hype a log. essentially.
Exactly. They also mentioned Project Storm Fury. That was an old research project looking into modifying hurricanes, but it didn't work out and was shut down decades ago.
Right, Storm Fury. So that's historical, not current. The official position seems very firm. Can't do it, don't do it.
Pretty much.
Okay, so the official denial is clear. But what about scientists outside of government, independent researchers? What's their take on these HAARP theories?
We looked into that. There's a quote from Stanford University professor Umran Inan. He calls these weather control conspiracy theories completely uninformed.
Why uninformed?
His main point is about scale, the sheer power difference. HAARP, while it transmits radio waves, the energy involved is just minuscule compared to natural weather systems.
How minuscule?
He compares it to lightning. He says HAARP's power is tiny compared to even one lightning flash, and there are countless lightning flashes happening around the globe every single second.
That puts it in perspective. It's hard to imagine something with relatively little energy influencing global weather patterns.
Exactly. It highlights the energy scales involved. And then there's David Nadich, a computer scientist. He had an interesting perspective.
What was that?
He basically called HAARP a magnet for conspiracy theorists. His reasoning was that its purpose can seem really mysterious to the scientifically uninformed.
So the complexity itself might breed suspicion if people don't understand the underlying science.
That seems to be his point. Lack of understanding can open the door to alternative, less evidence-based explanations.
Okay, so if it's not controlling weather or minds, what is HAARP actually doing? What's the real science behind it, according to our sources?
Right. So its main job, according to our sources, it's actually a university program now, University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Okay.
And they focus purely on researching the ionosphere.
Right.
They use this thing called the Ionospheric Research Instrument, the IRI. It's basically a big radio transmitter.
And what does that do?
Well, it sends out signals to temporarily excite a small, specific part of the ionosphere.
Yeah.
Just for study.
Temporarily excite. So it's not like a constant blast or affecting a huge area?
No, that's right. The IRI sends a signal in the high-frequency range. Part of that signal gets absorbed, but only in a pretty limited volume overhead.
How limited?
Typically, maybe a few tens of kilometers across and just a few meters thick. It depends on the frequency they're using.
Mm-hmm.
And crucially, the intensity of that signal up there is way less than the natural radio waves coming from the sun.
Okay, that's another important scale comparison. What about its history? Who used to run it?
Originally, it was a joint project. Funding came from the U.S. Air Force, the Navy, DARPA, and the University of Alaska Fairbanks. BAE Advanced Technologies actually built it.
So military and defense involvement initially?
Yes, but that changed. Since 2015, it's been operated solely by the University of Alaska Fairbanks.
A shift to academic research then. What kind of research are they actually doing there? What are they trying to find out?
It's really about understanding the fundamental physics of the ionosphere, how it behaves naturally, and how it affects things like radio signals passing through it.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. They study how to generate very low frequency, VLF, and extremely low frequency, ELF, radio waves. Those are interesting because they can travel long distances and penetrate water.
Ah, so that could be useful for...
Submarine communications, exactly. That's one potential application they investigate. They also create artificial air glow, like a very faint man-made aurora, to study atmospheric chemistry. And they look at how the ionosphere interacts with the Earth's magnetic field, the magnetosphere. They even use radar to observe meteors burning up. It's quite varied ionospheric science.
So it sounds like specialized atmospheric research with some practical communication applications. What gear do they have on site besides the main transmitter array?
Right. The IRI is the centerpiece, but they have a lot of diagnostic tools, too. Things like VHF and UHF radars to watch what the ionosphere is doing, magnetometers to measure Earth's magnetic field changes, and something called a digisonde.
Digisonde.
Yeah, it's a device that basically pings the ionosphere to figure out the best radio frequencies to use for the IRI experiments at any given time.
Okay, got it. Now, I remember hearing something pretty strange a while back, a claim about a floating city seen in China, and somehow HAARP was involved. Did your sources cover that?
They did address that one, yeah. It was a conspiracy theory that popped up. The fact checks we saw dug into it. Basically, the reports of thousands of people seeing this giant floating city seem to boil down to maybe one blurry video, not much solid evidence of a widely witnessed event.
So what was likely going on?
The most plausible scientific explanation was a fata morgana. It's a type of complex mirage an optical illusion caused by specific temperature layers in the atmosphere bending light.
Like seeing water on a hot road, but more complex.
Exactly, a superior mirage. And there was absolutely no credible link found connecting it to HAARP in Alaska. The event itself seemed pretty overblown in the reporting anyway.
So a natural, though maybe unusual, optical effect gets blamed on this research facility thousands of miles away.
It really shows how these theories can latch onto unexplained or weird events, doesn't it?
It does. And thinking more broadly, do these HAARP theories connect to other kinds of conspiracies or anxieties?
Absolutely. Our sources definitely draw parallels. There's often an underlying theme of distrust in government or maybe anxiety about powerful, poorly understood technologies.
Like what else?
Well, the 5G coronavirus conspiracies were mentioned as having a similar flavor, blaming a new technology for widespread problems. There's also a history of what you might call radiophobia and conspiracy theories around older mobile phone tech, too.
So it's a recurring pattern almost, finding a technological scapegoat.
It seems that way sometimes. These HAARP theories fit into a longer history of claims about secret military projects involving weather control or mind control. That narrative has been around for a while.
It's interesting, too, that even official bodies sometimes take notice, right? Didn't the European Parliament look into HAARP?
Yes, they did hold hearings back in the day. The concerns cited were environmental, but our sources note that these concerns were definitely amplified and partly driven by the conspiracy theories circulating at the time. So the theories influenced the discussion.
But if the goal is secrecy, as the conspiracy theories claim, how does that square with how HAARP actually operates? Is it all closed off?
Well, that's a key point of contrast. According to our sources, the original management, even back when the military was involved, publicly stated they were committed to openness.
How so?
They reported that all the research activities were logged, and those logs are publicly available. That practice has apparently continued under the university.
And access to the site itself.
Reports indicate scientists, even foreign nationals, had routine access. And now, under the university, they hold annual open houses for the general public to visit the site.
An open house at a supposed top-secret weather weapon facility.
Doesn't quite fit the narrative, does it? Plus, perhaps most importantly, the actual scientific results from the research done at HAARP. They're regularly published in peer-reviewed scientific journals, open for anyone to read and scrutinize.
So the science is complex, maybe hard for a layperson to grasp, which could lead to that feeling of mystery Nadich mentioned.
Right.
But the actual operation, the data, the findings, they seem to be handled in a pretty standard, open, scientific way.
That's the picture that emerges from the information we reviewed. Scientific publications, public access, documented activities.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. If we objectively evaluate everything we've discussed, what's the main takeaway regarding this hypothesis of secret government weather control via HAARP?
Well, based on this deep dive into the sources, there's a really stark disconnect. On one side, you have these claims of HAARP intentionally controlling weather, causing disasters. On the other, you have the scientific consensus about HAARP's actual limited capabilities focused on ionospheric research.
And the basic science of weather itself.
Exactly. And the nature of weather phenomena. The explanations coming from organizations like NOAA, from independent scientists, they consistently point towards natural causes for these events, or sometimes misinterpretations of science, or just unfounded rumors spreading online.
It really seems like there's a human need to find a cause, maybe a powerful hidden cause, when big, dramatic natural disasters happen. And sometimes those explanations aren't grounded in evidence.
That's a really important point to reflect on, I think. Wanting explanations is natural, but it's absolutely critical to evaluate the evidence, the reasoning, especially when claims are extraordinary, like alleging massive secret government conspiracies to control the weather. You have to ask, where's the credible proof?
A crucial question indeed. Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.